Welcome everyone to What the Force, and this is What the Force Happened in Rebels, which is the finale of Rebels. After 4 long seasons of epic storytelling, we come to a close with the 2 episodes, well, kind of 3, of Fool's Hope and Family Reunion and Farewell, Part 1 and 2. And with me today to discuss, to cry into our drinks, to console ourselves that there seems to be a future for some of these beloved characters, is James. Welcome, James.
Hello, I'm glad to be here. Wow, that was a roller coaster ride and a half.
Yeah, I had shivers like the whole time. I felt had very visceral reactions. Like I sometimes when I watch really good storytelling, my heart actually feels like heavy, and I had like goosebumps at one point, especially with Ezra seeming to know everything that was going to happen and how it was going to happen. Very in tune with the Force, and as kind of like the denouement finale, the final moments happened, and you could feel the visceral, like how they did the cinematography, how they did the music, that Lothal was finally free, and with his sacrifice. It was, yeah, I shivers, still getting those shivers. How did you feel about the episodes?
I will be 100% honest. I mean, when this series started, I went, it's Star Wars, I'll give it a chance. Some of the animation I'm not a big fan of, but that's just a visual. The storytelling was incredible. This, as far as endings go, did it end? I mean, seriously, life goes on was sort of the takeaway I got of it. I think they did everything incredibly. I think the fact that, our little boy became a man was pretty much it's a hero's journey. He became a real Jedi at the end. Yeah.
It was all about Ezra. And in a way, it was the end of the story for Lothal. And I think that's what's pretty important about these episodes. Yeah, like it was about Ezra becoming a Jedi. I would say that he's certainly a Jedi Knight. He passed the 3 trials of being a Jedi Knight.
Was that Red Guard 1, Red Guard 2, Red Guard 3? Avalanche?
Oh yeah, those guys. Yeah. But no, he let go, and he made the ultimate sacrifice of everything that he wanted. Having a family, he sacrificed himself, you know, taking the Purgle and Thrawn out into who knows where. I want to get to that later on, but yeah, he grew up and he saved his home planet, which was really wonderful.
Oh, I mean, I loved it. It was well done. And I like, I'll give the big spoiler. I like the fact that we finally found out who did Chopper. I did not know that.
So he was in every episode of Rebels. That's really cool, actually. So I just kind of want to go into very high level Fool's Hope, although really just the lead up to the finale, Family Reunion and Farewell, was actually really interesting because it pulled together all of the major aspects of Ezra's character into one episode. So Ezra is really good at reaching out to people and people who are lost and seeing who they truly are and bringing the best out of them. And he did that with Hondo and Rex and the clones, right? You guys are still soldiers, you're still war heroes, you still have stuff to offer. He did that with Ryder Azadi. Kitsu, although that was a little bit of Sabine as well, like in that friendship, right? And so all of these like key people in Ezra's life that he has touched along his journey came back to help him save his home planet because of the relationships. They were willing to put themselves on the line.
I mean, he since the beginning, he's made mistakes and he's gotten back up. But I mean, everybody out there, he's done something good for them and made their lives better. And this is the first time Ezra has asked anything, if anybody, he's helped.
Yeah.
Okay, except maybe the crew of the Ghost. Get my butt out of this jail cell every so often, but that was kind of a given.
And like even the writer Azadi, like, I'm gonna betray the rebellion situation, and they kind of tried to play it off as a little red herring. I didn't believe that writer Azadi would betray the rebels. Like even as he was calling Governor Price and betraying them, it didn't feel that way. And he's voiced by the amazing Clancy Brown, who
that's another actor I would watch anything he's in. And I think I've seen everything he's ever been in.
As soon as you start hearing his voice, you hear it everywhere. Yeah, so this episode was really interesting because you get multiple planes of the main theme. So the Star Wars main theme throughout it. You also got multiple planes of the Force theme as Ezra was calling on the wolves for assistance and allies. And you got a culmination of who Ezra has become through this journey with these rebels. It was his episode to kind of show he has strategy of his own. He has plans of his own. He has made allies of his own. And he is this powerful force wielder. That's why, like, even though like Rebels Recon didn't even talk about Fool's Hope, like they only talked about family reunion and farewell. But I think that Fool's Hope actually does call out the keys of Ezra's character.
Well, they dropped a lot of hints for the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we said earlier, they started out on the old men's boat. And everybody's meeting there, and that's where a lot of these things started when Ezra started to make friends. And they're like, "This is for Ezra. This is for Ezra's planet, and we're asking for help." I'm just like, and I'm starting to go. There's a lot more people Ezra helped. Who else could be coming in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, a Callus too. Like, yeah. Oh man, there's so many. Yeah, and Callus's journey throughout Rebels, although a sub, like, storyline, not like one of the main themes, but more tied to Zeb, has been really wonderful. And to see him redeem himself, and he had some really great lines I want to point out in the next episode. So we can move on to that, because really Fool's Hope was just them getting ready for the big finale.
It was a setup. Oh, no, we got to do one thing.
Okay, fine.
the greatest line that made me do a happy dance in my seat.
Was it Hondo's line?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say my line.
You got your wolf pack back.
Oh, you got your wolf pack back. Yes. That was, I thought, I literally, like, I thought of you. I was like, I should write that down, but he'll just mention it.
I did that. To everybody who doesn't know, my clone for the 501st is actually Comet of the wolf pack. So, when they, I've said this in the previous podcast, but if you're new, I'm not letting go of this bone. I mean, anytime Wolf makes an appearance or any reference to the wolf pack, I'm content. I'm good.
It makes you happy.
Oh, yeah.
The wolf survives, so that's good.
Oh, yeah. So does Rex.
My funny line, and Hondo survives. Oh, my God. Hondo, who comes up with this plan to sneak onto the planet to hook the Ghost onto a cargo ship right next to a hyperspace lane, which apparently is dangerous because you can get struck, and he's been struck 1, 2, 3. It's worked many times. Like, it made me burst out in laughter, because it's like, that's very Hondo of him, and reminds me a lot of Han Solo. Like, never tell me the odds. I don't even ask that question until after I've done it,
Well, I swear I remember a Mission Impossible episode. I can't remember if it was the old or one of the new remakes, where that's literally what they did. On the way into a secure facility, they had somebody lying down in the road, and a truck came by. They hooked on, pulled themselves up, and got hoisted in there. I saw that, and I was like, that's got to be what's happening there. That's got to be the inspiration. And then as afterwards, I'm like, yeah, you know what? If that thing was slightly off center, that would definitely be an impossible mission.
Farewell starts out, and the rebels have decided to sneak in by stealing the gunship and capturing Governor Price, and fly into the main administration building, which also happens to be a ship, you find out later. Although we saw one in orbit, which I wanted to point out, when in Fool's Hope, when they're trying to sneak past the blockade, there's actually one of those control ships in orbit, which gives me a lot of Clone Wars feel with the round droid control ships that the Separatists used.
Yeah, the ones with the sort of half or the 3/4 of an arc. Yeah.
Yeah. So they sneak on and they take control of the building fairly easily, which I guess it must be a really good plan, right? Because they were able to take control fairly easily.
Fairly easily. Melch had to fly.
Yeah, that's true. Melch had to fly. That's right.
I'll give it this one. I mean, for this entire episode, there was enough humor that it was like Hondo was a walking one-liner.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of the humor in this was kind of well done, well timed, and not overdone, I found. I don't know about the way you found it.
Yeah.
It's like, Hondo's like, come here. Saying they're perfect. Okay, you now go for it. Melch runs. Zeb tosses him. What do you know?
And he flies
they can
up.
fly.
They can fly. Yeah. And I really loved the more character driven lines of this episode, like just leading into taking control of the administration ship. Callus saying to Price, as Price says, well, you've betrayed everything, everything that you believed in. He's like, no, actually, I've stopped betraying myself, which I thought was really, really interesting. And there was a kind of moment when we found out that Governor Price was actually from Lothal.
They said that earlier, I thought, like way back in the earlier seasons.
Maybe, and I missed it, but to me, I was like, that's her home planet. Because then, to me, her accent is an affectation of wanting to fit into the Empire.
Oh, I've described her under words that we had to edit out of a previous podcast. So, I'll let him. I won't revisit that. She is
crazy.
Yeah. Well, no, she has no ties to her planet. It's all about her, and that's what she wants.
Exactly, yeah. And then there's this really wonderful moment when Sabine and Ezra just have this moment, and it's repeated several times. Sabine says, Ezra, are you okay? And he says to Sabine, I can always count on you, which comes later on.
He doesn't want to do this. He knows what Kanan laid it out before when he did his episode. This is Ezra's turn. I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the best options for me, but this is the best options for everybody.
It's like this whole episode actually follows a mini hero's journey arc where he has moments of hesitation throughout, right? And he lets Hera convince him, no, let's try another way. And then he says, well, there is no other way. He talks to Sabine and he has a moment there, like it's these little moments of hesitation on his way up the hero's journey until he finally is firm and he leaves his friends behind.
Well, he's also very much a grown-up, I found in the episode where, in the part where they have to, when Rook has dropped the planetary shields, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
There's Thrawn and the Star Destroyer blocking the only way out, and it's basically like, you can surrender or I can bomb the ever-living bejesus out of your home planet. Pick one.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point in time, Sabine knows Ezra. Ezra's like, I can trust you, and Sabine's like, oh, this is Sabine knew.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the moment when Hera would have, Lord love Hera, but she would sacrifice the mission and just about everything for her crew. And Ezra knew this. He had to go his own way.
Yeah, I agree. And he knew that, and he knew more.
Yeah.
I think he knew more. He knew where he was going. He knew he'd be okay, but he knew he'd survive, but this was of all the futures that he saw, this was the one that he could live with. And we got to hear, I would swear that Thrawn now has theme music, because this is now, I think, probably the third time we've heard it. It's this organ music in the background when he's on screen talking about power. And it's this, it's very disorienting. And again, brings me back to kind of Phantom of the Opera or some sort of vampire movie. Like, it's very weird. Did you hear it this time?
Yes, I did, actually. It sort of sets your teeth on edge. It's not fun music.
No.
It works for him.
Yeah, like I wrote it down twice because when he decides to destroy this parts of the city, right, bomb the city, just as he's talking about that stuff, organ. And then when Ezra meets him and they're having a discussion about how the Jedi don't use their powers correctly, more organ. It was like, it was very it's just very strange to like hear that music. I don't picture Thrawn as like an organ, but I guess it's very deliberate. It's very complicated. It takes a lot of mental energy to play an organ because it actually is with your hands and your feet together. There's several components going at once. And I guess it's a suitable instrument for the Grand Admiral.
Well, I mean, organ music is one of those things where it's always the big bad because it's always this enormous sound. It's this, it's larger than life. It's like you can get a great sound from an orchestra, like the whole everybody. Just one set of organ music is in and of itself almost all encompassing. There's just something deep, something very strong, something very powerful and very resonating about it.
And grand.
Yeah.
Like it yeah, and it represents sort of this reverberation and it is a very powerful instrument.
Yeah. Oh, when they were talking in the room, I was still doing the happy dance. One of my favorite props was on the screen. That Jedi Temple guard mask on Thrawn's desk.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, where did he get that from? Was it in the temple? Did he get it from Coruscant?
I have a theory.
Okay, say your theory.
Okay, I have spent way too much time doing this because one of the props I made was made out of several hours worth of skipping through Rebels episodes and Clone Wars episodes for the Jedi Temple Guard mask. That there's a unique head that fits in the mask because it's rather tall and proportional. Grand Inquisitor. I think it was from the Grand Inquisitor himself.
You think it was his mask, like he maybe gave it to Thrawn, or Thrawn found it?
Now, this is my theory on this. It's a case of every one of these masks was kind of unique, have to be unique to the race or whatever. And the Inquisitor is a pinhead. I know this because my mask is about 2 inches of foam on the top. Because after I was done designing and it looked perfect, I printed it and put it on my head and went, what the hell?
It's so weird.
It's kind of way too tall at the top, but it looks beautiful. And that's, yeah. I've got a few little, very soft spots for it. Here's one for you. I'll ask you this question. Did you notice something in the scene where they were taking the base, or when they were storming the base? There's a couple of really cool little tiny little nuggets in there that, if you're paying close attention to it.
I don't know if I paid that close attention this time. I was taking lots of notes.
Obviously, so was I. The clones.
Tell me.
They weren't fighting with modern weapons. At the beginning, the only clone that was rocking the E11 was Rex. The other ones were using the DC-15s, the Clone Wars era blasters, the ones that they had in the trunks on the ship.
They must have kept them very clean.
Well, they did. Well, okay, back when we go back to the episode where the clone commanders were introduced, they had the Z6 rotary cannon. They had some DC-15A. Oh, good God, I'm a geek. Excuse me. They had the long clone rifles.
This is why we love you, because you know this stuff.
They had a lot of surplus weaponry that they obviously brought to this raid.
Yeah.
And they were using them probably because that's the weapons they're familiar with.
That's awesome. And they work. I mean, Rex has complained many times about how crappy the Imperial equipment is. So
yeah, it
might work better. Then we move on, and Thrawn brings Ezra to a cargo hold, I guess is probably the best word, because it's aboard his Star Destroyer. And inside of the cargo hold is a piece of the Jedi Temple that had already been moved.
Called it.
You were right. So it seems like that Jedi Temple had potentially multiple gateways.
I think that's what they were trying to do.
Older gateways, newer gateways, spiritual gateways.
And there was something about that place. And I mean, they were trying to find these things out. And that's what we said. The Jedi might have explored it and done some, research into the Force and went, yeah, we're just going to lock this away now because, oops.
They kept on locking their secrets down further into Lothal. And there we see a holo projected Emperor Palpatine, and I got the weirdest vibe from him. I know it was him because that's not actually how he looks like. That was very Clone Wars Emperor Palpatine, like before he was disfigured with his fight with Mace Windu. But I got the feeling that it was very evangelical pastor.
Yeah.
Like he's just trying to seem holier than thou.
You weren't the only one.
And very good. Yeah. Yeah. And I loved how they lit him where it seemed like his eye sockets were very dark, as opposed to how they normally light him, which is from below, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And we got a very when he was on screen and he started to turn evil, when Ezra kind of made his choices, we got a almost full play of the Emperor's theme from Return of the Jedi. There was a choir. Felt very Emperor Palpatine.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love the fact that Ezra when he walked into the temple and he's looking through this gateway into everything he wanted at the beginning of this entire show. There's mom, there's dad, walk through the doorway.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's everything he ever wanted. And that's, he, as you said, he hesitated for a second, and then that wasn't what was best for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So during that scene, which was really interesting to see him play off of the Emperor, who was again Ian McDiarmid, which is amazing. We see him, it's to the animation, it's to Taylor Gray's acting, it's to the music and the sound design in the background, that you actually see him thinking and deliberating the choice, and making the right choice. On the side, we see cutaway to the special mission back at the rebel hideout. The rebels are attacked, and they were given a special mission.
Rook escaped, yeah.
Yeah, it was when Rook escaped and was given, go shut down the shield generators. That was long before that, but they were kind of knocked out, and it was Vizago, Wolf, and a kid that's been around the rebel base. And he said, Ezra's given me a special mission. And Wolf and Vizago are like, what?
You wouldn't believe if I told you.
You wouldn't believe it if I told you. And I can imagine Ezra being like, okay, so there's these things called purgles. And you're going to go up to the atmosphere and send out this frequency 0 transmission. And then just watch it all happen. And that's like another set of friends that Ezra has made along the way that like kind of owe him one, Oh
yeah, and I mean, it was like, wow.
So if you think of Rebels as like the microcosm of Lucas, like the whole thing, like they say, hey, there's no such thing as filler, and there is really no such thing as filler. And this is why I always say, like, everything is one story. We've even heard Dave Filoni say that in Rebels Recon multiple times. It's all one big story. It's all interconnected. They had an opportunity to really tie things quite a lot into, say, Rogue One, and tie things into the original trilogy, and to lay the groundwork for potentially future storytelling yet to come. Some of these characters might end up getting played in movies or live action, or come back in future animation.
Since you're dropping that, the ending, their one line was something that has been, the moment some of the conceptual stuff for the later seasons came down, the moment that dropped and some of the concept stuff for this season came out, there was that new Rex. Rex was in Rebel gear, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, that's out of
Return of the Jedi."
It's going to be in Return of the Jedi on Endor, and everybody's like, he dropped hints, but he's like, "Oh no, we can't confirm that." No, as at the end of this,
he said he was like, "I don't care, I'm going to make him that guy."
Officially, they were saying they just look the same at the beginning. Then it was like Filoni probably did drop that, but I like the fact that they admitted it. There's Rex. I'm like, so you mean to tell me with my shaved head and I grow a full beard, I can wear a bucket off rebel in a scout armor and get approved in the Rebel Legion as Rex. I love it.
Oh my God, you could totally be.
Great. You telling me I'm old with a gray beard? Thanks.
No, I'm saying
I'm kidding.
that this is your new build for Rebel Legion.
You mean to tell me I just need to grow a beard because I already have the scout armor?
Yeah, you're pretty close. All you need is the helmet, right?
No. When he's done, when there's a scene in there where he's actually wearing the scout armor and he's got the hands behind his head, and so he's got the he's not wearing the helmet, he's wearing a balaclava.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, I could do that.
Nice.
I will say the one thing I really like out of this entire episode, all the way up to the point where, including the scene out of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where they're being attacked by the giant squid tentacles.
Yeah.
That was awesome, and that was really just the end. And they were the space whales were grabbing these enormous Star Destroyer monster ships and going, and you're gone.
Yeah.
Grabbing them and running.
This is very much, I want to get to that in just a moment, because there's a few kind of key moments, like character moments, like Gregor's death, where Rex has this really touching moment with Gregor as he gets shot, and Gregor still manages to, overcome the challenges in front of him and push the stormtrooper off. He gets kind of shot into like the worst possible way, like a knocked out stormtrooper like wakes up suddenly and like shoots him. Like it wasn't the best, but he still managed to kind of soldier through. What did you think of that moment with the clones?
I'm a clone at heart. I may have a dozen suits of armor, but I'm a clone. Those are my people. I honestly went, no, I was audible. And I mean, it was cheesy, and this is the clone who, got trapped on a planet where everything exploded around him, and everybody's like, oh my God, that was the death. And he survived that to get shot by a guy who got a lucky pot shot before finally passing out.
Yeah.
Nah, it was no.
It felt like not a great end for Gregor, unfortunately. Other than maybe to inspire Rex more, maybe. I'm gonna make a bold argument about the end of Rebels. You want to hear what it is? Here's my bold statement about Rebels, like how it ended. It was the two towers of Filoni's trilogy. And why I state that is because they defeat the former White Wizard with the effective tree ents coming to destroy the tower that controlled everything. The Hobbit came in and called the tree ents to destroy the bad tower and the army that was invading it.
I got nothing. I mean, part of me, I'm really torn on that entire idea because you just dropped that bomb on me in the middle of the podcast. Because part of me is going, no, that can't be. And then I'm going, no, she's right.
And then who returns at the end of it but Gandalf? I mean, yeah, Ahsoka the White.
I'll give you that one.
This was the two towers of Filoni's whole vision. And maybe Clone Wars was the Fellowship of the Rings. All of these disparate people coming together to achieve something. Mm. So that means that we're heading into Return of the King.
I don't even know when the next one's going to be, but let's keep going on this episode, then we can talk about where we think it's going.
But that was one of my major points, was that the Space Whales came up and I got the shivers of Lord of the Rings, especially like the idea of these tree ants just coming in and ripping the orcs apart. But really it was these purrgils with their tentacles, these space whales. I wrote out space whales in large writing. Space whales. These space whales with, these large tentacles ripping apart these Star Destroyers. These Star Destroyers mean nothing. They mean nothing, right, to them. You think you're powerful. You know what? Nature, the universe, the living force is powerful.
And these were something that nobody knew about until Ezra and the Ghost found out. Well, they knew they existed. They've sort of seen them floating, but nobody actually knew that they would go in, they'd eat the gas, and they'd float out into space and jump away, or at least, or they'd fly away. But But
Hmm.
nobody realized these things could jump into hyperspace on their own.
Yeah. Shortly before that, we see Rook, who is trapped by Zeb and ends up being killed as they turn on the planetary shield, protecting Lothal from the bombardment of Thrawn. We also see the fight with they're, they looked unique compared to
I'm
Praetorian
going to go
Guard.
with they were either a predecessor of the Imperial Guard, the Royal Guard, whatever you want to call them, the Red Guard. They're either, I think they're maybe a
Yeah.
variant on that, or they very well could be the evolution of the Inquisitors, or they could be the Praetorian Guard version. But I'll give it this one. Do you know what my well, I'll say this. My feed exploded today on Facebook with all the people starting to build the new costume.
Oh, they loved it?
People loved it. Well, as with everything. I loved it. I hated it. It was the most disgusting thing ever. It was the most amazing thing ever. It's a total ripoff of... there's the whole rainbow of geekdom.
And we got some epic playing of the Force theme as the Purgles captured our good friend Thrawn, and held him. He shot Ezra in the back. Ezra seemed to shrug it off. Like, ugh, okay. And he held the ship together as the Purgles jumped into hyperspace, effectively taking all of their problems with them. The Ghost crew and family, and extended relations, decide to blow up the central control building, which is also a ship. And I found out something really interesting watching Rebels Recon, that never is Lothal's sky blue until the ship is blown up.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it this one. That was probably the largest mass murder of the entire series.
Yeah, because they asked all the Imperials to come onto the yeah, of the Star Wars saga, Death Star
I
1
said
and
of the
2.
series. Rebels.
I know. No, I know. But this was like the equivalent of blowing up one of the Death Stars as far as like the series and like how much death has been maintained. It had that same sort of like
I'd say
achievement
the
in a
Death Star.
way.
I would say it's sort of it's lower end because I mean if we go by scale, I mean a Star Destroyer is bigger.
Oh, yeah, no. I know. It's not the size, but from what it means to the rebels and to Lothal, it had a deeper meaning to it, right? It represented the freedom that they sought. And then Sabine has Ezra's lightsaber with her, and that's what she uses to escape the building with everybody. And then they get back on the Ghost, and Ezra has left them this wonderful message saying, like, you know, I'm going to miss all of you. This was the only way. Um, Sabine, I'm counting on you, and I can't wait to come home. And then we get an epilogue by Sabine, who has
She's a decade older almost. This isn't like a couple of weeks. This is
well, they they said it was post
yeah, this is now
Endor.
post Endor, but that's
So
years.
it was like 5, I
Yeah.
would say over 5, right? Because that would be post Endor. So 5+ years later, we see her. She's cut her hair. She actually has on her shoulder a Purgle, Rebel Alliance symbol on one shoulder, and the Purgle. And she stayed in Lothal and helped it rebuild. The Empire never came back because they were too distracted with the larger rebellion. And you see this paradise built of
Yeah, this is what
Lothal
Lothal
City.
used to look like, what Ezra remembered.
Yeah, and you see her standing in the exact same spot that Ezra was at the beginning of the series to really bring the full arc to a close, and see it through her eyes and see what he did for his homeworld. And you hear a few things which I think are just really interesting, like, you know, everybody helped out with the big rebellion, especially
Spectre
Hera and
7.
Rex, who kind of joined in. And and we get to see Spectre 7, which made me go, oh, that's a thing?
Oh, come on. They were a couple.
You no, I know, but like that's what he looks like, I guess. So he loves to fly just
and we
like
all
his
know who his
mom,
dad
and
is.
he's got some bad
Yeah,
habits
we all
like
know
his
who his
dad.
dad is.
Yeah. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
Jason Sendula, which is, yeah, it's, I want to see him grow up. Like that's my new wish for the Filoni vision of the world. I want to see Jason Sendula grow up and be who he's going to be. Um, and we also see Callus got to kind of have his redemption fully realized by fully being redeemed in the eyes of the
Yep.
Lasat and seeing Lyrasan through the super hyperspace coordinates, the hidden planets.
And being accepted as one of them.
Like good things do happen to people that redeem themselves, I think is what they're
Everybody
trying to
got the
say.
happily ever after, even if it wasn't necessarily. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the fact, like, it's my favorite one was the fact that she starts talking about, how Rex, he helps out in the battle of Yavin and all the way to Endor. And I mean, I'm like that. Yeah, once again, happy dance. That was Rex.
And I know Filoni in the beginning said he was going to do those episodes, but I actually do think that their season was cut short because I think a decision had to be made. Normally they were getting 24 episodes a season. They only got 17. And I think that they had to make a decision to cut over to whatever new property was going to be put onto the streaming network sooner than later so that they could um, cut over. They also said that from a story perspective, it felt right to end it with
Yeah,
Ezra's story. And I agree with them that we didn't need to see their perspective of Rogue One. I thought it would have been cool, but it didn't need to happen. And I'm happy with the story that was told. It feels good.
they were given enough notice to tie it up, which I really liked.
Yeah, and what what feels good about it, and this is what I really desired when we were talking about the Rebels recap of the seasons, was I wanted to see the hints and the threads and the open stories of where they could go next and how it would tie whatever stories they told next and whatever canon came after would tie, or where does the yellow brick road start from here. And we saw potentially many stories, right, that start from this
Well, I
point.
mean, at this point in time, they've all gone their separate directions. Zeb has gone
Yep.
gone home.
We don't know what happened to Kitsu. We don't know what happened to some of the other, like, we don't know where Hondo is, probably
Hondo's
being a
probably off
pirate.
once again, being very surprised that his plans actually worked.
I want to see him and Maz Kanata have an adventure together. That's my new
Yeah,
Maz Kanata would slap the crap out of him
oh
and
yeah.
beat him up, and then he'd be like, I love that woman.
The one thing I thought was absolutely hilarious, and it's been in almost every one of the Hondo episodes, is nobody seems more surprised that his plan actually works than Hondo himself. Just stop and think about that. Every single one of his ideas, he's like, "Yes, that was what I planned. What? Yes, they can fly."
Before we kind of go into what we think is next and kind of all of those questions, I do want to call out the end credits, which plays the Force theme beautifully. They have a little version, and it's almost like a Rebels version of the Yub Yub song from the original Endor uh, party in Return of the Jedi. It's got that, this could have been At the end of Return of the Jedi, like that music, it's very Ewok-ian. And then it goes into a very stylized, longer form version of the Rebels theme. And amazing work by the composers, because there were several that work on Rebels, and just the themes were spot on, especially in the fourth season, pulling out the main theme and the fourth theme whenever appropriate to tie it all together. And, whenever Vader was on, he got his own music. Yeah, the music was amazing for just a little cartoon show.
Oh, we can admit that. I mean, this was not just a little cartoon show. I think everybody knows that. It had stuff in there for the kids. My son loves it, and
Mhm.
still iffy on the animation, but love the stories.
So, where do you think they're going to go from here?
I honestly, I've got no clue where the heck this is going to go. I think maybe they might be laying the groundwork for that new the new series you were talking about. I would love, personally, I think the
Yeah,
end, like, the search for Ezra, them working, trying to
yeah,
figure out going past the Outer Rim or wherever the heck Ezra ended up searching for him. I mean, I would love to see more Ahsoka stories. I'd love to see what sort of a person she's become. Because, I mean, she laid, like, this is
yeah,
somebody who realized that she shouldn't be part of this timeline. And she stepped out of the limelight for the longest time. This is somebody who could have made a difference. The great, powerful Skywalker blood.
hmm
Sorry, but you know what? She's kind of got more training than you do there, Junior.
yeah. And I think she went out somewhere to find different answers, because she came back, like, it was a couple of years, right? Ezra grew up, she was gone for a while, and she came back in that white robe with that very Gandalf staff.
That's what I'm saying. I think she stepped out of the. I think she stepped away because technically, what Ezra did was an aberration
Hmm.
to the timeline. She was like, despite
Yeah,
like she died. Like, you're gonna get sort of. I love the meta knowledge concept. She died then.
it.
She should not have lived, but because of what happened, she
Yep.
did. So she had to step out or interfere with time itself for a while. I think that's my view.
Yeah. I've been listening to Filoni for a while, and he, at the end of that second season, when she faces Vader, Anakin, he described her journey exactly like Gandalf the Grey turning into Gandalf the White. He described it exactly. He said she goes into the underworld and she comes back a changed person. And who knows how long she's been searching for answers and searching for a new way and a new perspective. And so she is no longer a Jedi. She is not a Jedi, but she is something else. And she purely represents a light
Mm-hmm.
force wielder.
And she decided that a long
Um,
time ago back in Rebels when they were like, well, Master and Apprentice. She's like, I'm not a
mhm.
Jedi. Can't do that.
Exactly. And so I do think that they're going to go, and whether it's going to be in a novel, whether it's going to be in a comic, whether it's going to be in another animated show, I think Filoni loves these characters too much to stay away from doing them in a show. But I think they'll come up in a show either way. It might be brand new people, but they're gonna interweave their threads in there. I think this is what I think. It's going to take place 10 years after Return of the Jedi. And they're going to be in the outer rim, the unexplored areas of space, where we find, as we know what happens after Return of the Jedi, the remains of the Empire flee. They get trapped out there because they have no idea how to navigate in the unknown reaches of space. And I think they find Thrawn. The Imperials find Thrawn, and he helps build the Forced Order. So we get some of the cool concepts that Timothy Zahn originally created with Thrawn, that he helped kind of man the Empire, and keep it going after the fact. There's a lot of information about Snoke that's kind of surface deep, um, that came out of The Last Jedi, in that he he was the reason that the Imperials didn't fall apart, and he almost fell into becoming their supreme leader. With his navigators were the only reason that the First Order actually ended up becoming anything in the outer reaches of space. There is this massive, really cool concept out there of how that all got started, what that's all about. Maybe Ezra's a captive there. That would be really cool. Filoni says they both survive. Thrawn and him both survive, and then he knows exactly what's happening with them.
I have faith in Filoni. Whatever's coming next, and if he's producing it, if he's executive producing it, if he's telling somebody, sure, go ahead, produce it, I will watch it if it's got his blessing.
So, who do you want to see next? Of all of these characters, who do you want to see
I
more
already
of?
said it. I want to see Ahsoka, and I want to see what's Sabine has turned from a dangerous young woman with a lot of problems into, I don't know whatever her rank was in the rebellion, but commander, general, whatever. She is somebody. And I want to see where they go with that story, because those two are walking off. But I also admit it, I wanted to see. Oh, hey, there's another character we haven't heard of in a while. Ventress. What happened to her?
Yeah. So you're pulling people from Clone Wars. That'd be interesting too, to see more Clone Wars characters make a comeback.
Well, I mean, at the end of Clone Wars, the Ahsoka and Ventress went off together.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't know that they necessarily need to do a rebellion type story. I think there's lots of potential to tell other sorts of stories in the universe, right?
I mean, they could do the attempting to restore order to the galaxy.
Yep. So like post aftermath Chuck Wendig's books, right? So as they're starting to build the new republic.
I'll be honest, I don't want to overthink it. Because well, no matter what happens, if this is coming out of Filoni, it's going to be good. I will enjoy it. And that's what's going to happen. I will wait and see what he gives us, because this guy, he brings stuff you would never think possible into the world, and you're like, no, that can't be. Oh, he's like, all of these things are tied together. Stuff is happening here that is going to be in Rogue One, and he's robbing stuff straight out of Return of the Jedi to make it fit with his world. This guy's he understands that Star Wars is not like, it's not an episode that ends. It's all one story that started, in their own term. It started 40 years ago, and it's still going on today.
And I love that he still gives credit to George Lucas in how he started his vision with Clone Wars. And he says, I'm telling the story that I think George Lucas would tell, with what I feel is important to the Force, because George taught me what's important.
I'll give an opinion on this one. I think George, feel free to come get me on the internet, folks. But I think George Lucas is a wonderful idea man. He's a concept man. He's a little details man. He's not the guy you go to for a storyline. I'm sorry. I think the best thing that ever happened was people got between him and that. Sorry.
Maybe the high level story, right? Like maybe that seed that inspires all of those brilliant people, because we know that he like, when people get what he's trying to say, they tell these amazing stories. Like Filoni took Clone Wars to
just
new
don't let
heights
him make the story.
All
just
of this
keep
stuff.
him away from writing the story.
Where he has struggled in the past, George, is telling, like, where Filoni succeeds, where George fails in some ways, not fails, but is less strong, is telling the stories about the characters, and that it's the characters' motivations that matter, and not the stuff that necessarily happens. It's the needs, it's the desires, it's the stuff that makes these characters strong that is key to the storytelling. And that's where some of the pieces fall apart with, especially like episode 2 and 3, is that some of the character choices were not as strong.
I would say, like, Lucas, and he has these wonderful ideas of all these great character concepts he wants and all these parts he would like to be in there. And he needs other people to be able to weave it and tie it all together. And I think this is why I think Filoni is great, because the writers, and I mean, they've got some stupidly crazy talent happening. Like, I mean, I'm an audiobook guy. I love listening to audiobooks. It's what I do on the train on the way to work when I'm reading books. And certain things, certain voices now stick in my head anytime I read real books. But I mean, he's got, Taylor Gray, Vanessa Marshall, Freddie Prinze Jr.,
Yeah.
T.S.
Even part-time talent, like, Sam Witwer.
Oh, man. If anybody, and I'll put this out there, if anybody's is listening to this cast, there's just some amazing episodes about, like, Dee Bradley when you look at Clone Wars. There's an episode or 2 or 3 where he is the only person talking. He is literally having conversations with himself. And this guy brings so much emotion and power and identity to each one of these voices that they're different characters each, and these are what these guys do, and they're amazing. What they like, that this is, I think, probably what really drove Rebels for me, is each one, like, there are some people out there who, when they go in to read for a character, they will read in their normal voice, and then they're out. I am Groot. But then there's people like, well, I mean, Clancy Brown. There's one guy. This guy's been in, I was looking at his IMDb page. He's been busy for, a long time. But
he is one of my favorite voice actors.
I mean, Clancy Brown is one of those actors, when you hear his voice, you know who it is. But I mean, some of these guys, like, we'll go back to Steve Bloom. He plays like half of the characters in this.
Yeah.
And you can't tell it's him.
He plays...
he changes it.
Yeah, he plays many of the Imperial characters, and he puts on a really nice British accent, so he kind of blends in with the Empire. I can usually tell. I have this weird superpower. Maybe it's not so super, but I can tell people when they're voice acting. I can just, like, pick it up very quickly. So, like, I'll just be like, "Oh my God, it's Sam Witwer! That's totally Dave Filoni," but I couldn't tell that Dave Filoni was Chopper. There was too much filter. You can imagine, though, that Dave Filoni's just swearing in the background like a mechanic. So final thoughts on Rebels. What has the show meant to you?
Any good show, when it ends, any show you're really invested in emotionally, you're going to miss. And I mean, Rebels has been one of those shows when it goes on hiatus for the mid-season break or the summer break, where I'm like, has it started yet? Has it started yet? Has it started yet? Yeah, I'm a giant 8-year-old, folks, but that's... Rebels is one of those shows where I'm going to miss it. It wasn't Clone Wars to me, but it was comparable. At Clone Wars, when it ended, I missed it too.
So I have rewatched Clone Wars.
Only once?
3, maybe 4 times. Like, it takes a long time to get through Clone Wars. Rebels, I have as we lead into each season, I pull out the Blu-rays, and I rewatched all of the seasons beforehand to get ready for that next season, because I love this family. This family has meant a lot to me. They feel real. These characters connect with each other, and the story feels truthful. And I think that is the biggest compliment to the writing, to the acting, to how they portray the visuals, as much as the animation is very kid-like, some of the visuals and some of the, in a way, cinematography has, how they portray light and dark and the symbolism and the mythos in Rebels has taken it to the next level. And that's why there's been this general call out to say, Dave Filoni should be in charge of all of Lucas. But the story itself was able to be told and is finally complete. So that's why it feels, in hindsight, like everything made sense. But in the beginning, people really struggled with the stories that they were telling. They were like, oh, these are nice episodic episodes or filler episodes. And even to the Rebels creators, they question whether the fans got them. So I think the lessons learned is have faith in Filoni, have faith in Lucas Animation, and then also have faith in Lucas because they put Filoni in charge of that and much more in the future. So I think that's the lessons learned from Rebels.
I'd agree with that.
And with that, our very short Rebels review episode segments are wrapped up because we only managed to do 3 of them before we finished everything. But I think justifiably, you and I could probably do some sort of wrap up or review with whatever is on the horizon.
Well, I'm looking forward to that and seeing what comes next. But yeah, this was amazing. It's actually a lot of fun being able to find some friends that you can geek out with about this stuff. Because for some reason, all the other adults in my life, well, except for the 501st people, all the other normal adults in my life they look at me funny when I start geeking out about TV shows.
Well, this is one that if they haven't checked it out, they probably should have by now. All right. And with that, and just as Ezra said, the Force will be with you always. Thank you, James. James, if they want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
Anybody who wants to find me online, folks, you can find me at Twitter at Skullflare or Skull's Armory on Facebook. Any one of these places is usually where you find me. I'm actually working on some new props, so you're going to be seeing pictures of them soon.
And I am Marie-Claire, and I'm your host of What the Force. We are at whattheforce.ca as our website, or WT Force Show on Twitter. Feel free to review us on iTunes or reach out to us on Twitter and start a conversation. Cheers!